Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Today I'm gonna do something different. It's not going to be a conventional coding tutorial, but today it's gonna be something I'm really passionate about nowadays. It's called self-hosting. So as of recently, Spotify, which is the service that I've been enjoying for the past few years, has increased its prices. As a student, it's gonna be borderline unaffordable for me. Furthermore, given Google's privacy track record, I'm not really comfortable hosting my data on the cloud. So in this video, I'll show you guys how you can use your old laptop or your old computer as a self-hosted server. We're going to be installing a few self-hosted tools that you can use locally on your network. So let's get started. So here's my two computers that I own currently. The one on the right is my old HP computer that I've been using for the past 8 years, but now it's gotten too old. And recently I bought a new laptop, my Framework 13. So because of this, my old HP laptop, while it still works, it's been on the shelf for the past few weeks. So I'll be using this laptop as my home server. So as the first step, what I'll do is I'll log in into my old computer to set some things up. Okay, so now that I'm on my old PC, the first step would be that you install a Linux distribution onto your computer. Here, you can either install Ubuntu, you can install Fedora, or you can install other operating systems. It doesn't really matter. Here, I'll be using Fedora 42. The second step here would be to install a container runtime. This will allow you to run containers and other services on your PC. So you have two options. You can either install Docker or you can install Podman. Since my distribution, Fedora, comes with Podman pre-installed, this is what I'll be using in this video. So here, my next step would be to enable SSH. SSH would allow me to control my computer over the network. So to enable SSH, what I'll go is, I go to the Settings app. Within Settings app, I'll scroll all the way to Systems. Then I'll go to Secure Shell. So by default, it should be disabled. I'll enable it like so. It will then ask me for my password. I'll now put my password. Okay, so SSH is now enabled. I would now need to find my IP address. With this address, I can connect to this computer. So here I am within the terminal. To get my IP address, I go IPA. So in this whole sea of weird numbers, find the inet field. Here you can find the IP address that you want. Otherwise, if it's a bit too much for you, let's clear it and we can go hostname-i. This command also gives you the IP address. You press enter and here, sure enough, the first address or the first IP address that we need will allow us to connect to this computer. So now that I have SSH enabled on this PC and I have my IP address, let's now head back to my new PC so that I can control my home server. Okay, so now that I'm on my new computer, what I'll do is I'll SSH into my old PC. So I'll do SSH and then the IP address, which was 192.168.0.104. So if this is your first time using SSH, it will ask you something about fingerprints. You can just type yes there. But since this is not my first time, it will ask me for my password as well. So I'll now enter my password. Cool, I'm in. So for easier data management, I would want to create a folder for each of my service. So first what I'll do is I'll create a folder for my projects. So make directory projects, then go to my projects directory. Here I'll create another folder for my service. So to start with, as my first service, I'll be using Navidrome. You can think of it as your personal Spotify client. So within my terminal, I'll create another folder. Let's call it Navidrome. So now I'll go back into Navidrome folder. So for every service, I would need either a Docker file or a Docker Compose file. Going back to my browser here, I found this documentation where it talks about using Docker Compose. This Docker Compose file will help me run my container. So I'll just copy it like so. So within my server, I'll create a file called docker-compose.yaml. Let me clear this up. And then I'll go nano. So I want to use an editor, docker-compose.yaml. So this will help me edit my file. And since I've copied it already, I'll just paste it like so. So let's look through the code together. Here, it's my user and it says that I should be the owner of my volumes. to get the owner of your volume, it's simply the user ID of the current owner. So within another terminal instance, I'll go again using SSH to my server. Again, it will ask me for my password. To get my user ID, I go ID-U. So here, according to Linux, my user ID is 1000. So far this is correct. My second step would be to configure my ports. This is where my container will live. So according to my Docker Compose file, my container will be on port 4533. And here I should also set my volumes. So since this is personal preference, what I'll do is I'll remove these quotation marks since I don't need them here like so. And then same for the one at the bottom like so. So what I need to do is I need to configure my paths to my data folder and my music folder. So I'll just do // which means that my data is going to be in the same directory as my Navidrome folder. Same for my music as well. So I'll edit this like so. It's going to be / music. And one more problem I found out is that when you use Podman, you'll get some permission related errors. So what I want to do is, first of all, I would have to run this command. So I'll just copy it like so. I'll go to another terminal. I'll go again to my projects folder, Navidrome like so. Then I'll paste this command. It has no directory, so I would need to create the directory. And then I'll run it again. Cool, now it's done. And one more error that we have with Podman is that we need the Z flags. So here I'll just do a capital Z. This means that this will tell Podman that my container can now use this volume. I'll do the same to my music directory as well. So it's comma and then Z. That's it. Now I'll save it and then enter. That's it. So one more thing I forgot to mention is that I have a few K-pop albums that I backed up recently using a disk drive, and then I put them within my music folder within Navidrome. So going back to my terminal, I'll just go Podman compose up. Okay, so now as you can see, my server seems to be ready. Okay, so now I'll go to another terminal. Let's see if Navidrome is running. So Podman PS. So as you can see, Podman is showing that Navidrome is running on port 4533. So going back to my browser, I would need my IP address, go 192.168. Basically the IP address of my server, 0.104.4533. So as you can see, my container is now running and I can actually play music. For my next service, I'm going to be running Paperless-Ngx. This is an open source service that allows you to manage your documents. So let me go back to my terminal, and within my projects folder, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another folder called Paperless. So now I'm going to navigate into Paperless, and I'm going to create a Docker Compose file once again. So touch docker-compose.yaml. So going back to my documentation, I found the setup page and I'm going to navigate to use Docker Compose templates. So here it says go to the Docker Compose directory. So when I open this, I have this link. So here I'm going to use Postgres. It depends on you what you want to use, but I'm going to opt with Postgres. Okay, so basically all the documentation is here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. So now with this copied, I'll go nano Docker Compose and then I'll paste it like so. Let me zoom out for a little bit. And let's double check the code here. So once again, since these are volumes, I'll just do Z here and then Z here. Furthermore, it has an environment file which is called dockercompose.env. So this means that I have to create an environment variable file for my container to run. So what I'll do is I'll exit like so. So Control X and then yes, and then enter once again. And then I'll do touch docker-compose.env. So my environment variable folder. And then I go nano docker-compose.env. So I'll go back to my documentation. I'll go to compose. Here they have an example of docker-compose.env. And I'll just paste it like so. Okay, so now it's been pasted. Let's check if we need to fix something. So of course we need to change the user ID, or we need to set the user ID. And scrolling down, let's check more. We don't want to make this publicly, so let's ignore this. I want to set the time zone. So I'm not in America, I'm in Europe/Berlin. And scrolling down, I think that's more or less it's now done. So I'll exit and then yes once again. So now just like before, I need to run my container. So Podman compose up. And now let's wait. Okay, so after a few minutes, it now says that my server is now running. We can double check it like so. So I create another SSH. So SSH, let me zoom in a bit. 192 again my password, and then let's do Podman PS. Let me zoom out. But sure enough, as you can see, my paperless instance is now running on port 8000. Let's now test it out. So within my browser, I go 192.168, again my IP address, and then port 8000. So as you can see, our service is now up. So that's it for today. In this video, you guys learned how to set up your old computer as the server, and you also learned the basics of running a few Podman or a few Docker services on your local PC. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. Till then, bye bye.